Hi, Stock Edwards back with One Belly Wednesday, and I have a question for you as a parent. If you're thinking about putting your baby in a helmet because you've noticed a flattening of the back of their head, this conversation is definitely for you. So there is a condition that in medical terminology is going to be called plagiocephaly. It's basically a flattening or a flat spot that develops in the back of babies' heads. And this wasn't something we used to see before the whole back to sleep campaign. Pediatric orthopedists that I've talked to said they very rarely saw this in the 80s and 90s, but once the back to sleep campaign came through, they started seeing it a lot more. For some kids, they would have a flattening of the back part of their head, a bone called the occiput, and it would stick straight up. But what I notice more often in practice is that it's not right in the center, it's off to the side. And a lot of times it's off to the right side. Now, there can be a few reasons for this. In the obstetrics literature, they say that most birth trauma can happen because a lot of people who are delivering babies are right-handed, and so it has a lot to do with the handedness and how they use the head and the shoulders and the neck and how all that comes out. What I see here in practice is something that my friend and fellow ICPA instructor, Lisa Geiger, refers to as JET, J-E-T syndrome. It's really easy to kind of put it together like this. So JET would stand for J, jaw. When you look at a baby's jaw, when they open it up, does it list off to the side? Like instead of going ah like that, does it go ah like that? The other piece is E for eye. So when you're looking at a baby's face, does one of them look like they got a pirate eye, you know, like this? It's usually because of a torsion, a twisting that's happening in on the face. And so the last piece there is T. Torticollis is a big word. Dr. Geiger likes to say twisting or turning of the head, but again, that definition from a clinical standpoint, we call it a twist. So basically, when you lay a baby down, does your baby have a tendency to turn the head over to one side? Think about it nursing too, in a nursing position. Think about it in a way of, oh, my baby has a preference for my right breast or my left breast. Generally, if there's a preference there, it's because it's easier for the baby to do one side or the other. Now, there's a couple reasons why these things happen. Some of them can be neurological. Some of them can have to do with a muscle strain. Some of them can be due to a misalignment of the cervical vertebra. But one of the things that we do as pediatric chiropractors is we screen for these kinds of things. Because one of the things in my practice that I've noticed, and again, chiropractic isn't a treatment for something like this, but it certainly can help. If we have a baby who's consistently turning to one side, we need to figure that out because balance and symmetry is really important for developing brain. This isn't a cosmetic thing either, and that's really what I want to get across to parents who are listening to this, is that some people think, oh, I've got a flattening in my kid's head, and so don't worry, the hair's going to grow out and you won't even notice it. The back part of the brain that has to do with vision and also the underneath part that has to do with balance and coordination lives there. And they grow based off of the pressures that are surrounding them. If you have a occiput, that bone again, shoved up that direction, it's going to change how that baby's going to grow and develop the brain. So there's a few things that we always need to do. One is definitely we adjust them. So there are a lot of chiropractors who do what we would call, Dr. Marty Rosen would call it craniopathy. It is similar to sacro-occipital technique. It's similar to craniosacral therapy. It's an unwinding of the dura. It's an unwinding of the cranial bones themselves because they're mostly cartilage. Not a lot of people know that. When a baby comes through, most of those plates in there aren't bony. The first parts that are bony are here in the cheekbones. They've got these little centers for calcium to grow and develop, but a lot of them are very manipulable. And so they're very malleable. You can move them around, but you need some consistent pressure. So we do a couple techniques to help with that. And I actually have a success story to share with you today. A little girl, she's a couple months old, was brought in at 2 months because she was having some latching issues and digestive problems. And we started working with her. In the middle of that, very early on in care, she got influenza. So she was hospitalized. When her mom continued care, when she came back in, we noticed that she had a tendency to turn her head to the right side, and she was flattening that side of her head right there in the back. So what I recommended was that we work a little more intensively with her. And so over a span of 2 months, what this little girl's mom did was she took a picture while her baby was in the hospital from top down, and you can see that flattening. It's really apparent. And then she took a picture recently, so she's 4 months old now, and you can see how that rounding is starting to occur. So the techniques that we do in our practice are all all I learned is through the ICPA, the International Chiropractic Pediatric Association. So if you want to find a chiropractor who's near you who can do these kinds of things, they have a really easy referral directory for you to check out. So one of the other things that'll happen is that sometimes the babies will come into me late. I've got our best opportunity within the first 12 months of care, but if they come in a little bit later, we can still make some really interesting changes. So we work with the Johns Hopkins satellite office in Fort Myers, and we've done a couple of cases where we've been working together. And what I've heard repeatedly from their center is that they've never before been able to see the kind of changes with the helmets that they do with the x-rays with the addition of the chiropractic that we're doing. There may be some extra things that we'll recommend for parents, some rehab to help with increasing the cerebral spinal fluid, to help do pressure from the inside out, to help with what we call cranial blowout. But overall, the combination of the three, the bracing with the helmet, the chiropractic care, and therapy, all seem to be very, very effective at getting measurable changes on CT. So it's another win for collaborative care as well. Sometimes if we can catch it early, it's something that we can manage conservatively, but if it's going to be later, there's still hope. Finally, I want to leave you with the very first cranial story that I ever had in practice. This was a guy in Australia who happened to see my practice as he was walking by, and he thought, oh, well, I was going to go for surgery for my nose because he fell down a well. Can you imagine that? Fell down a well, broke his nose, and he did the weirdest trick. He could close one nostril here and breathe through that one fine, like that, but he closed the other one, and this nostril would snap shut. Can you believe that? So he had such a deviated septum. And so I started working with him. It was really early. I didn't have a whole lot of experience doing it. But after about 3 months, when we did his reassessment, he said, well, thank you for showing me the improvements on my exam. I want to show you this. And he did his trick again. He closed this nostril, breathed in, closed this one, and you could hear it. It was a tiny whistle, and like that. He said, this is the first time since I fell down that well that I've ever been able to breathe through my nose. So even if you're an adult, there's still some possibilities for change. All right, thanks for watching this One Belly Wednesday. As always, make sure you subscribe. And we have lots of information on our Facebook page and our Mama's Chiropractic blog. Love to share that. We'll post that picture up of the little girl as well. I really want to thank her mom. Awesome for letting us do this too and share that case, share that win so other parents can find out too. Have a great day.